This time, Jürgen Klinsmann's Germany, World Cup 2006, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the German national football team.
Because I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank once and for all who is the greatest team of all time. My name is Graham Dunn, once again making the case for Oxford United at every opportunity. And joining me from our data nerve centre, it's Jamie Rooney.
I know, season 4, more facts, more stats, more teams, more guests, bigger, better, bolder.
Yes, season 4, and quite exciting. We've already done, almost 100. Well, is it almost 100 or is it over 100
We've done
teams?
over 100 teams. We've covered over 100 teams. Yeah, we have a top 100 plus.
And some of them are great. Lots of them we're somewhere in between, which, as if you're a regular follower of the podcast, you'll know we do tend to pick teams who aren't necessarily the most obvious. And you can track all of those down in our archive, which I heartily recommend. And in customary fashion tonight, we are talking about World Cup. This is a World Cup year, which we'll go into. And again, we've chosen Germany, a side that has multiple World Cup wins. But have we chosen a World Cup winning side? You know, we have flagged and referenced German national sides in this podcast, and it's very difficult.
Can I just point out, you have flagged and referenced just before you lead into that?
Yeah, this is true, very much so. And I sort of think it was time to redress the balance on this. And, you know, it is interesting over the course of Germany and West Germany beforehand that they're often cast as sort of the bad guys in football. I think they were often on the wrong side of that stylistic battles. You know, 1974 is the classic example, isn't it, with Holland. You know, who wouldn't want the total football of the Dutch to win? And it was Germany's role to be the bad guys in that, and that's something they were very adept at doing, at winning. But I think within that, maybe I have been a bit harsh in not fully recognising that actually the German side has played some brilliant football.
It's one of the most successful national teams of all time. And you're right, they do get portrayed as the baddies, and they definitely are portrayed as the baddies in 1974. Hosts in a rainy Germany, where they beat the beautiful Dutch team of Johan Cruyff and Nieskins and et al. But also, if you go forward 8 years, you've got the Schumacher. Definitely didn't help the reputation of people following West Germany. But when they unified, things were a little bit different, I think. And that's the team that we're going to be focusing on. So the 2006 version is going to be when Germany has been a unified nation after 16 years, after last winning the World Cup in 1990. Have we covered 1990, the World Cup?
Oh, I think we might have. And once again, I mean, I don't think the 1990 West German winning side was particularly lovable from a neutral perspective, but obviously painting our narrative of the glory of the iconic England team in that era, Germany again had to fulfill their role as the bad guys in that story.
So we talked about 1990 with the wonderful Steve Double at the back end of our last season with the England 1990 team, and how that was a turning point in football, in English football, moving from the dark days into the light days. And I think there's a case that this Germany team moves in that direction as well.
Yeah, you can definitely see that. You can see it on pure football side, and we'll come on to talk about that, and not only their performance in this tournament, but really the legacy of the work that Klinsmann put in. But there's so much in terms of both at a national level and sort of a global level. So in the same way as England at Italia 90, it was very much that kind of a new dawn for how England and English fans were seen and the relationship to football, and it paved the way for Euro 96 and fantasy football and that whole culture. You've got a similar thing happening in Germany, only this is the biggest event that Germany will have hosted since reunification. You know, it's some time afterwards, but it is still a big deal for Germany in terms of national identity. And what really starts happening is that German football fans fall back in love with not only the German national side, but kind of expressing a pride in Germany at the time and in flying the flag. To some extent, I think it completes the unification journey. You can make the argument it completes the unification journey, which began, with the wall being knocked down.
Yeah, you can. I think it goes beyond the boundaries of Germany as well. Definitely. And I was in Germany for this World Cup as well, and it was fantastic. And it was an absolute fairy tale summer. The weather was beautiful. But I think this German team, the seeds are sowed for the wider world to appreciate just what a quality bunch of players and style of football they go on to produce. And we'll talk about the legacy, but I think this sows the seeds beyond the boundaries of just Germany. And I think there's an appreciation, a world appreciation for Germany and German football. And I think it's probably poetic that this particular team that we're going to talk about actually doesn't go on and bag the glory. In a very rare circumstance in German history, World Cup history, they don't even get to the final.
It continues the parallels with England in Italia 1990, where they fall up the same hurdle with the same kind of what ifs quality of the manner in which they go out. I think the other thing which is really clear in the parallels to Italia 90 and that reinvention, and maybe arguably Euro 96 to some extent as well, is the way that it made Germany made such a brilliant job of hosting the tournament. They were obviously blessed with the weather that happened that year as well. But the innovation of the fan zones, that's absolutely changed the experience and kind of the attitudes of football organisation and tournaments to supporters. So things changed from being, it's not so much in the games, but it was in the other cities, where you've rival fans who's had very little else to do but get pissed and sort of chant opposite each other across bars. And then, there was a kind of powder keg atmosphere to it. And they changed it into a kind of celebration. And who knew that football fans might quite enjoy still having a beer, still enjoying the sun, but actually watching some football.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. And, do we have to give Sepp Blatter some credit for this one? I don't think we do, but he'll certainly take it. But yeah, you're right. The fan parks were a new concept in Germany 2006. I experienced those fan parks. They were fantastic. And I think the weather helped. When it's glorious, warm sunshine, and it's light until 10:30 at night, and you're having this kind of festival of football, does help. And if I compare that to the World Cup in 2010, I was in fan zones there in 2010, where it's Johannesburg and it's -1 and it's freezing cold and it's dark and gloomy and you've got scarves on. It's a different experience. So the weather definitely plays a role in this. But yeah, it was a brand new experience, this fan park festival. And that was commonplace. 20 years later, the fan parks are commonplace. I mean, you've even got fan parks now in cities that aren't even hosting the tournament. And I think you're right. I think it's a really good observation, Graham. I think it comes from this World Cup. So once again, we have to just appreciate the brilliance of German efficiency and innovation.
I think what's interesting about this, though, is that, it is brilliant, but that this World Cup is so successful for Germany does come quite out of the blue. And that does seem odd because the German national football side had hit rock bottom. Now, that is all relative. Bearing in mind, yes, they went out the group stage the previous Euros, but they did get to the final of the last World Cup. Now, England, 1970s, didn't qualify for 2 consecutive World Cups, let alone do anything in them. Yeah. So there are different levels of rock bottom. But if you look at Germany's, both West Germany and then Germany when it becomes unified, their record in tournaments is unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a team that gets to the latter stages and finals pretty much most of the time. They win the World Cup for the first time in 1954, and that's a surprise. They weren't expected to beat Hungary. They'd only just been allowed back beaten in the FIFA World Cup for the men's. And then really from 66 onwards, where they finished runners-up to England, they just go on a run of making final after final. And then we get to the rock bottom moment, years 2000 to 2004, where they actually, as you rightly say, make a World Cup final. That's a brilliant rock bottom to be. I'd love a bit of that rock bottom. Oh my God, we've only finished runners up in the World Cup final. This is a disaster. We need to rewrite football. How has this happened to us? God, first world problems. But yeah, West Germany, as a football nation, is incredible. They have 4 stars on their shoulders for the World Cup. They have 3 European championships. They have endless finals and runners up, many semi-finals. I mean, a player we're going to talk about hopefully later today, Miroslav Klose, one of the most underrated players, I think, of World Cup history all time. Most goal scorers ever scored in World Cup finals. His record at 4 World Cups is a winner's medal, a runners-up medal, a 3rd place, and a 3rd place. I mean, show us your medals.
I mean, what's interesting is that Germany get to the final at World Cup 02, isn't it?
Japan, yeah.
It sort of plays into one of the reasons why I think for many people outside of Germany, the German national side was really difficult to love, which is that side that got to the final in 02, they weren't great. That isn't a great side, and yet still they managed to get to the final. And of course, what Germany became famous for was this kind of just being tournament professionals and this ability, I guess you'd call it quite a cautious approach. They never set tournaments on fire, but they would just do enough. They keep progressing through. They won the big moment. I say this as if these are bad things. They clearly are not bad things, but it probably kind of came to summarize it. What really summarizes it is obviously their unbelievable record at penalties. So I think in tournaments, major tournaments, they, after losing to the Czech Republic, where they only lost because someone invented a whole new type of penalty.
Football in verbs. That's where it started.
And they haven't lost a penalty shootout at a major tournament since. That talks about a mentality and ability. You know, if you're supporting that team, that's a good thing. If you don't support that team and keep losing on penalties and keep seeing this side progress when it gets to the crunch, there's just like envy of kind of how did they keep doing it and frustration that grows from that. So I think that 02 World Cup achievement sort of sums up why, outside of being a supporter of the German side, you probably thought the team needed a reboot. Now, within Germany, what's interesting is that they seem to think they needed a reboot as well, because come the 04 tournament where Rudi Voller's in charge and they go out in the group stage, very, very unusual for Germany, that is sort of seen as this rock bottom period, isn't it?
It is. And I think there's a real kind of reflection on German football in terms of where it is and where it wants to be. And they've got some decisions to make in terms of how do they change their direction. And Jürgen Klinsmann, as a coach of the national side, isn't really in the mix of things at the beginning of that kind of early reflection, because he doesn't represent what German football has been, possibly where German football is going to go. Plus the fact he's surfing and running marathons and working in a bakery in Orange County in California with Tiger Woods and co. So he's literally thousands of miles from Germany. And I think the obvious choice after Rudi Voller has been sacked is the great Otto Rehhagel, who has just won the European Championships with Greece. He's produced this miracle. We've covered this with the amazing Gus. And it seems that it's now Rehhagel's time to take over the reins from Voller and carry on the work that Germany has done for decades. But obviously that means they're probably going to stay in the same structure that Germany has been. And maybe there's a few people inside the German Football Federation that maybe want to try something a little bit different.
I was talking to you about this beforehand, and I think you can make the case that Jürgen Klinsmann is the international successor stroke version of Kevin Keegan at Newcastle, because they're both come from nowhere, and they're both these talismanic figures. So they've got these fantastic reputations, and it's a bit of a punt. I mean, Keegan was out on the golf course in Malaga or Spain or wherever he was there. As you say, Jürgen Klinsmann is out riding the surf in California. Neither of them have any discernible experience in football management. It's not that they appear to have spent the intervening years kind of, okay, well, we've got a brilliant track record in this. There's a sort of a positivity about them. And I think it must be to do with the character as well. They're a kind of force of nature.
Yeah, they are. And it's interesting because obviously one goes from the golf course to the northeast and takes over Newcastle United, and they go on an incredible journey, just narrowly miss out on the glory and the spoils, but they're given a lot of adulation for the way they've done it. And, one's in the sunshine of California, drinking his orange juice, selling his pastries and coffees on a daily basis, going out surfing. But I think you've touched on the mentality. I think it's that penalty shootout mentality. One's come from a position where he's been a part of a culture and been a part of a football team that is generally accustomed to winning or getting to the latter stages. And the other one, Keegan, has come from a completely different culture where glorious defeat is an accepted norm. I think that's the difference between the two of them. But it's a brilliant observation. It really is. I mean, they're striking similarities in terms of how they play as well. Very similar players. That they both like to go to ground quite easily. Klinsmann owned that, which is fantastic. But again, that kind of talks about the differences in the personality. But yeah, similar playing careers, traveled a bit, and similar managers. I mean, brilliant parallels, Graham. Yeah, Kevin Keegan, Jürgen Klinsmann. I mean, they're never in the same room at the same time, are they?
And of course, if they were in the same room at the same time, it wasn't where they're at the defensive coaching lesson, because both are 100% committed to attack as well. And that's what's so sort of beautiful about it. I think you have to give the German Football Federation and the people in charge, the guy, whoever it was who really backed and made those decisions, they fully kind of went for this approach. I mean, that Klinsmann was going to try and change things and try and play a more offensive game and turn to youth players, which is probably I think that's probably the biggest difference between Keegan and Klinsmann that you could call. Klinsmann's obviously decided that if you're going to change the culture, you have to change the players.
Yeah, I mean, we can come on to this, but there was a lot of resistance to him taking the job in Germany at the time. There was no license, no experience, no clue. And that was kind of the media portrayal. But yeah, Klinsmann's gone on a bit of a Das reboot for this job. I think he's decided that he has to take this for the future of German football. I think he has a clear idea what he wants to do from the very beginning. And that's even though he's got no experience in coaching. And why would a man living by the ocean in California want to give up that lifestyle just to take on a high profile, stressful international manager's job? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, he's got everything he needs in life and then he decides he wants to complicate himself. But he also commutes. He commutes from California to Germany. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And it's fair to say that not everyone thinks that's a good idea. But it's funny, obviously, England now have a German coach, and he was getting slammed for kind of watching games not in England. But I mean, Klinsmann was ahead of the curve. He knew what he needed to see. He didn't need to be there. And we'll come on to it. There's a particular game ahead of the World Cup where it kind of all goes particularly wrong. And I was reading, there was a great quote from the head of the German Football Federation at the time, Zwanziger, I think it is, who said up to the World Cup, he must be sitting in the stadiums in Germany every weekend.
Because the TV hasn't been invented.
Working from home, I mean, everyone supports a bit of working from home culture.
Oh, yeah.
But if home is California, I can see one or two issues with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's also clear, I think we both, I will stop the Keegan Klinsmann analogy after a while. I think they both do the same sort of thing, which is they're not afraid of brave calls and taking those decisions. Now, for Klinsmann, the big one is around the keeper, isn't it? Because he doesn't make the ultimate decision straight off, does he? So you obviously got Oliver Kahn, and it's kind of super established in goal for Germany. I mean, it's quite an odd thing to do. He obviously went through the annals of football and thought, do you know what? I think England always had some good goalkeepers. I think the best era is when they swapped between Shilton and Clements and didn't really have a number one, because that's what he decides to do.
Yeah, it's a pretty brave move, sorry. I mean, Oliver Kahn is one of the world's best goalkeeper, even in 2000s, and he's coming close to the end of his career, but he's still an incredibly imposing, strong character, a captain, a leader, a fierce, angry man on the field, it appears as well. Incredibly angry sometimes, and scary, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I saw him a couple of times play in real life. And obviously, because he's in goal, you get to get a good perspective of him because he's generally between the sticks. Massive, absolutely giant.
Wow. Yeah.
But Lehmann isn't that dissimilar. So I kind of get where Klinsmann's coming from. I mean, Jens Lehmann in this particular moment is Arsenal's number one. And Arsenal are a pretty big deal with Arsene Wenger. And they're doing pretty well. So Lehmann is a good backup option. But obviously Klinsmann's decided that he's not going to be my backup option for the finals.
It feels like that's a very political statement or a deliberate kind of message. And you see a whole series of players come through as well, young players come through, Podolski, Saka, Schweinsteiger. So you've got this whole new generation who are going to provide this bit of youth and reinvigorate the side. What's quite interesting, we'll obviously come to the legacy around it, is it would be, with what goes on to happen after Klinsmann leaves, the choice of Jürgen Low as assistant manager looks inspired, and the assumption almost becomes that, he was actually behind all the tactics, and Klinsmann was just doing the front of house stuff. So I assumed they came as a package, and that was sort of an established relationship. But that's not the case, is it?
There's no relationship between Klinsmann and Low before Low is appointed Klinsmann's second in charge. There's no relationship between the two. I think as history kind of plays itself out, Germany have stumbled across, I think they have literally stumbled across one of the greatest football double acts of all time in Klinsmann and Low. I can't imagine they knew what they were going to lay down, not just for this particular tournament in 2006, but what they were going to lay down for the next 8 to 10 years in German football, which is an incredible road that they travel down. And obviously we'll chat about the legacy. But they'd never coached together. I think they'd met when they were in the kind of the German football circles when they're studying. They hadn't really worked together. Low was a coach at Stuttgart, and he'd also been around at Austria, Vienna, and Fenerbahce, so a bit of a journeyman, travelled around. But I think Klinsmann had an admiration for him. I think he liked his tactical depth. I think more importantly, I think Klinsmann recognised, I don't have any tactical depth. I'm an inspirational leader. I've got a vision. I'm a motivator. And I think he recognized his own flaws. I mean, I don't know this. I could be completely wrong, and I could be doing Jürgen Klinsmann a disservice, but I think he recognized his weaknesses, and I think he did the best thing you can do with your weaknesses. He plugged them with a super strength, and Jürgen Low is definitely that super strength because he does bring an incredible tactical depth to this German team.
Klinsmann's approach is with high risk. There's sort of almost a running battle with Das Bild, the German newspaper, and which obviously then doesn't help. But, he sort of sticks with what he believes, kind of regardless of the criticism and regardless of that actually it's not really going very well for quite a long time.
They have a bad start, and Klinsmann has he has a couple of results that don't go his way. They get smacked against Italy. They lose a couple of games, which the German public would expect them to win. But I think Klinsmann he's a very incredibly courageous individual because he backs himself and he backs his ideas. His use of sport psychologists and giving the players yoga as, a form of rest and recuperation and recovery and stretching, I mean, we're less than 20 years later. Sports psychology and yoga are part and parcel of what all, not just professional footballers do, even, middle-aged men in their 50s are doing to kind of keep themselves as flexible as possible. So Klinsmann backed himself, even though the results at the very beginning were pretty poor and he was under a lot of stress. And there was a lot of stress because, again, he didn't have his license. So he didn't have a FIFA license. He wasn't a coach and he was getting a lot of criticism in the press. So by the time he gets to the World Cup finals in Germany, there's a feeling, I think, I wasn't in Germany for this bit, but there's a feeling that this is going to be a disaster. This is going to be the worst World Cup for Germany. It's going to be the worst World Cup for a long time. And I think there's a genuine reason to believe that. But what I like about Klinsmann is that he's got the courage to back himself and he's got the beliefs. And I think he's put together a team and he's invested in young playing staff as well, which I think is a massive move. It introduces energy into this team and we see that energy almost immediately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The head of the German Football Association, Zwanziger, in an interview a couple of years later, revealed that they were so concerned that they had a plan B ready. So Matthias Sammer, he was the director of football, and I think he'd come in a role something like that. And I was a bit of a suggestion that wasn't Klinsmann's pick, and that they basically had the idea. Okay, well, if it doesn't look like it's going well, which would probably mean, if they didn't win that first game, it's time to smash the glass and have the emergency drop in. And I think that that he's talking about that. Well, we did have a plan B in place, and that spoke to the kind of nervousness there was around, especially after that defeat to Italy, everything seemed to come to a head there. Not only did they lose there, at that point, I think he had made the call around favouring Jens Lehmann instead of Oliver Kahn. Christian Borns he's also resigned to a kind of a backup role, and that's a decision he doesn't take very well and kind of isn't shy about talking about it. Klinsmann, I think, there's some kind of World Cup coaches event or some kind of event in Dortmund that he misses, and so Franz Beckenbauer is having a go at him. That's not good.
It's not good when you got Franz Beckenbauer on your back. I mean, who's probably the prime reason why Germany have won the hosting of the World Cup. He's gone toe to toe with Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu in the runoff with South Africa to host the World Cup, and Beckenbauer's come out. Beckenbauer's a massive personality, so I think he's a bit like the English Bobby Charlton. He kind of just has that underlying respect, so what he says goes. But this goes back to Klinsmann's courage, his charisma, his belief. Maybe some of the time he was winging it, maybe some of the times he was kind of thinking it was going to turn out well without a plan, but I'm not so sure. I think he had a vision. He wanted to rebuild German football. He wanted to do a full reboot, and obviously when you do that, the classic saying, Graham, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs. And I think he's breaking a few eggs, but he's breaking a few eggs in the right place. He's not breaking them in the World Cup finals. He's breaking them in the preparation to the World Cup finals.
Absolutely. I would, Alan Partridge style, continue the metaphor, whether they're fried, scrambled or whatever, but I won't. I'll leave that. Suffice to say, with all that pressure, it is absolutely vital that Germany get off to a bright start in the World Cup. And in the second half, we'll talk about exactly how they do that.
Do you have a team in mind that you'd like us to cover? Well, just don't keep it to yourself. Let us know. You can get in touch with us across the socials on X or Blue Sky. Graham is at Said and Dunn, and I am at Couch Pundito. That's on X and formerly known as Twitter, and also on Blue Sky. Remember, greatness isn't just the big and famous. We love a cult classic, and we love a good underdog story too. And also, watch this space. Some new channels coming your way.
So welcome back. We're talking about Jürgen Klinsmann and Germany. We're about to enjoy the summer. Sommermärchen? Is that what they call it? Summer Fairytale?
Sommermärchen, yeah, the Fairytale summer. I think the weather has a lot to do with this. I mean, I've mentioned it once or twice. It was glorious. I absolutely remember loving my time and never wanting to come back from Germany. It was just warm, cold beer, football, love. It was a time to make friends, which is brilliant because that was the official slogan. It was a time to make friends. So every single person that traveled to Germany for the 2006 World Cup embraced the slogan, and we made new friends.
So touching. You presumably made new friends with a St. Pauli fan on the grounds that you seem to be wearing their shirt.
It's the black version as well. And it's from, I mean, we're not even sponsoring these things, but it's from a company called Cooligans. They're a Spanish company and they do retro shirts. It's not the brown version, but it's got the skull and crossbows on there. It's not as cult as your classic St. Pauli shirt, but yeah, it's retro with the laces. It feels like a West Germany 1954 helmet shun top.
We should mention, by the way, if you want to know more about St. Pauli, you should, of course, listen to one of our previous podcasts, or possibly watch it somewhere. It will be on YouTube eventually. But listen to our podcast. We did do St. Pauli in our third season. Actually, if you don't know anything about that side, they are an extraordinary, not massively successful, but off the pitch, and their influence in sort of good causes, liberal, left-leaning, liberal, woke, whatever you want to call it. They're absolute leaders in that field and have a following that goes so far but beyond them.
So true. I mean, I've been blessed enough to travel around many parts of this world. And then, I mean, this is not something I should be sharing, and maybe this won't make the edit, but you know, when sometimes you pop into a public toilet in a bar or a restaurant, and it's one of those ones that's encouraged stickers to be put everywhere to decorate the walls. The amount of St. Pauli stickers I've seen in countries outside Germany is incredible. For a team, as we covered, that has never really won anything, their following is extraordinary.
Absolutely. And of course, the pirate theme, I saw a brilliant tweet from Paul Watson the other day. Well, I only saw it yesterday, but by the time this goes out, this will be some time ago. And it's a brilliant concept. The PFA do something about players who are out of contract. I think they have training camps and actually arrange games. So that there's a kind of, and his theory is that they should be allowed to travel the league as a kind of pirate team, and then they should play other sides. And if they beat them, they should be able to take their place in the league, which I think is fantastic. Fantastic option there. So genuine, and they obviously would have to play in the St. Pauli style pirate kit in order to do that. Brilliant. But we seem to have strayed quite drastically off the topic. We were heading towards the World Cup in Germany. Huge amounts of pressure on that. Jürgen Klinsmann has put all his chips on youth and attack. So there's a lot of pressure on this, but they get off to an unbelievable start because within 6 minutes they scored, don't they?
Yeah, so this is the classic 32 team format where the hosts kick off the World Cup finals. Germany are playing Costa Rica. Philip Lahm, a utility fullback, right or left, goes on to become an incredible legend of the game. But at this particular moment in 2006, he's not that well known. He's 21, 22 years old, and he opens the game with what can be described only as an absolute screamer. It's a fantastic goal. He scores it within minutes of the game. So the World Cup finals is started. Germany are hosting. Germany are playing. The journalists are probably taken to their seat, getting ready to moan about Klinsmann's poor preparation and how bad it's going to be. And then within minutes, they're going crazy from a Philip Lahm screamer.
And it sort of doesn't stop there. I mean, it's something like 15 minutes. It's already 2-1 to Germany. That game finishes 4-2. And again, if you think about what you'd expect from any tournament opening game, virtually every game finishes 1-1, 0-0, 1-0. For the opening game to finish 4-2 and for it to be Germany to do this, so straight away you are changing all your preconceptions. Because the traditional thing is don't lose your first game. And Germany just go for it.
And I forgot to point out, this is the very first World Cup where the hosts kick off. And prior to this, it was always the holders.
Of course it was, yes.
So in 2002, the previous edition of the World Cup, France, the holders kicked off in Japan and they famously lost to Senegal 1-0. So this is the first World Cup where the hosts are kicking us off. And that now has become the tradition. What's going to happen in the version of the World Cup where there's 6 countries hosting is going to be a logistical nightmare. I guess it's going to be the team that's hosting the first game will kick it off, even though there are 6 hosts. But yeah, I mean, I think this is fruition. I think Klinsmann and Löw have been working towards the finals. They know that they have to manage a tournament. This is about tournament football. And I think, if we relate this to Gareth Southgate, he got criticised quite a lot for being the England manager, but he knew how to navigate and manage tournament football, and it's quite important. But what Klinsmann has done is he's put the emphasis on attacking. Germany are playing a 4-4-2. They're very open about that in terms of a 4-4-2. There's a high press, and the fullbacks, Lahm included, are just pushing on super high. And you've got this incredible football player in the middle who's almost at the peak of his powers in Michael Ballack, who is just dominating the midfield. He is your archetypal general, would you call it?
He's general, yeah.
Yeah, I think, like that midfield general. We don't see him these days. They don't really exist because obviously 3 men in midfield that are sharing the roles. But this is back in the days where 2 central midfielders would do the work of what 3 do now in the modern day shape. And then you've got this incredible Miroslav Klose. I mean, I love this guy. I think he's fantastic. And he's partnered with this fresh, exciting youngster called Lukas Podolski. You know what, Graham? I didn't know Lukas Podolski, but I was in Cologne on a train going into the centre to watch a World Cup game. And the train was absolutely rammed. And at the time, Podolski was playing for Cologne. So he was a bit of a local hero. And the whole train, for the whole journey, for 20 odd minutes, were just chanting, Lukas Podolski, Lukas Podolski. And even to this day, almost 20 years later, I can still hear that in my head. It was such an impression. It landed on me. So I'm like, I'm super excited to see this youngster in action. And I wasn't disappointed. He was fantastic. I mean, he still is fantastic. And he's brilliant on Instagram. I follow him. He's worth a follow. He's opened many kebab chain stores in Germany and Turkey, and a very successful individual, but a wonderful, wonderful footballer.
I think it's interesting as well. I'm just sort of looking at, and you'll have had more appreciation of it having been in Germany for this. There's a sort of very democratized approach to it. These days you get sort of, a team will be based in one part of the country and play, all their group games there, and then they go on to wherever. I'm looking at what the venues is. So that first game is in Munich, I think. And Poland, Ecuador in that group is in the brilliant Gelsenkirchen. Germany's next game is in Dortmund. Ecuador, Costa Rica is in Hamburg. When Germany play Ecuador in their third game, that's Berlin. There's another game in Hanover in that group. This is a very democratized approach where actually you're getting to see the German national side all across the country.
Yeah, and it's become the norm now. It's a really good observation because, again, this is the first World Cup where you see, especially the host team, playing in all four corners of the country. Previous to that, most of the host nations would have been in the same location and they'd have played their games in the same location. And you're right, it would have been grouped, teams would have been grouped in set locations and moved on in the knockout stages. But yeah, I mean, Germany was absolutely the prime location. I mean, the Munich Stadium, the Allianz Arena is absolutely amazing. They moved from the Olympic Stadium by Munich, which was still in operation up until the early 2000s for this World Cup. And they've modernized so many other stadiums, in Dortmund, Berlin, where the final was hosted, an absolute beautiful stadium. So the infrastructure has been invested in to just really make this a festival of football where everyone can make new friends.
So Germany progress quite happily through that group. It's a big win against Poland. They get a last-minute goal in that one. I think Nerville.
Nerville.
Gets the crucial winner. By that point, they're qualified. They beat Ecuador 3-0 in the last game. 2 more goals for Klose, who, I mean, he's interesting, isn't it? I mean, how many goals did he? He's the record holder still for the most World Cup goals or something.
Yeah, he scores 5 in this edition. He scored 16 World Cups, which is 16 World Cups. He scored 16 goals in World Cup finals, which is the most by any individual in the history of the game. And when you think of some of the famous players that have played in finals, he took the record from Ronaldo, what some people like to call the real Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, who is ordered as one of the greatest players of all time. Pele's up there in terms of goals. Gerd Müller is up there in terms of goals. But right at the top of the tree is Miroslav Klose. And I think Klose deserves a lot more kudos and respect than he gets. I mean, he was a classic number 9. He was a brilliant goal scorer, but then so was Gerd Müller. I mean, Gerd Müller did most of his damage in the 6-yard box. And Klose is not only brilliant with primarily his left foot, but he has got a right foot. He's also incredibly brilliant in the air. And he's one of these number 9s that just was able to find space and was incredibly clinical. I rate, and I've always rated Miroslav Klose as one of the greatest number 9s to ever play the game. But when you get into pub conversations and you mention that, you do get shut down quite quickly because there are so many other reasons and so many other players to suggest that he's not. But I mean, the trump card is more World Cup goals in finals than any other player in the history of the game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. From that stage, Germany go into the last 16.
Germany are taking on Sweden, and it's a pretty explosive start.
Yeah. At this point, I think you're seeing the kind of the belief starting to kick in, bringing out my tired comparison again. But it's exactly the same way with Keegan's Newcastle. There's an element of with this team, if you can get the confidence and the belief, and you can start to ride that optimism and enthusiasm, sort of anything's possible. So they're going in expecting to score, expecting to win. That Podolski's got 2 goals in the first 12 minutes, and it's game over already, essentially, isn't it? Because I mean, it is funny. All the emphasis is on attack. This Germany side don't concede. They don't give up a lot of goals, though. So, defensively, they are still pretty strong, even though all you're thinking about is attack in this period. But, once they've gone 2 up, they're at Munich, they've obviously got the massive home advantage. They're definitely on a roll, and you get to the quarterfinal, and then that's probably, the first of a couple of absolute epic matches in that tournament, because they then play Argentina in the quarterfinal, and it's a decent Argentina side.
It's a very good Argentina side, and they've got a youngster in their ranks that is showing signs that he might become a special player in Lionel Messi. This is his first World Cup. This really is a changing of the guard World Cup as well, Graham. If we just like for the quarterfinal for a second, we've got Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Wayne Rooney in particular are all making their debuts in World Cups. Now, Ronaldo and Messi go on to become probably two of the legends. But then we've got Luis Figo, Raul Gonzalez, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, Zinedine Zidane, who we can talk about a bit more a bit later. They're all bowing out. So it's almost like a transition. I mean, we've talked about the transition, but it's a player transition as well. Some of the greats of the game, this is their final World Cup. We're not going to see them on the world stage like this again. And then we've got these new kids on the block that are going to grace the game for the next 20 years.
Yeah, yes. And that is worth noting in the last 16 games. So whilst Germany and Argentina are making pretty routine progress, so ahead of this podcast, I was going to sit and watch all the Germany games from as a little reminder, and I did watch one of them, but I did run out of time a little bit because I don't really even remember this. I would have watched that game. I'm sure I'd have loved it and enjoyed it, but the Battle of Nuremberg, Portugal v the Netherlands. Wow, what a game that is. So Ronaldo's kicked off the pitch as, it'd be fair to say, it's a brilliant combination because you have the Dutch who are obviously testing out their tactics for when they play Spain in the World Cup final in a few years' time against a Portuguese side who always had a kind of rash moment in them. I think that's part of the flair you expect from Portuguese, and Portugal absolutely comes beautifully to the fore because. If you get the chance, I can't recommend watching this game. Maybe not when you're meant to be researching a different story, but it's well worth 13 minutes to watch it because there are some tackles. And I think the referee got a bit of criticism. I think there are something like 14 bookings or something like that and 4 sending offs. It's something crazy like that. And from what you can't really argue with any of the bookings at all. I mean, they did argue. You can't really complain about any of them. It really is something special. There's multiple times there are brawls on there. I think you summed it up pretty well when you said that Sepp Blatter after the game said it was a disgrace, which is saying something.
Yeah, I mean, for Sepp Blatter to call something a disgrace is, you really got to prick your ears up and take notice because there's a man who's had disgrace attached to him, allegedly. And and he regretted this comment. He also said after the game, Russian referee Valentin Ivanov should have given himself a yellow card. And Ivanov, bless him, he was retired after this World Cup. He was actually at the statutory age to be retired. He was at 45, which for FIFA referees is when you are put out to pasture. But regardless of his age, I think he might have been put out to pasture anyway. Yeah, it's a record still to this day, 14 yellow cards, 2 red cards. And I think it gave FIFA the opportunity to look at how they were governing the game and the world stage. These little test things that they wanted to do during World Cups. And sometimes they would work, sometimes they wouldn't work. And I think they were getting very strict on yellow and red cards for minor infringements as well, to the point where, you could blow on a player and potentially get booked. And that's definitely what this World Cup did. It highlighted the vulnerability between what the referees had been told and what FIFA had kind of expected from them. And then FIFA decided, actually, no, we don't want that. We're going to need to change it again. And I have to say, though, this Dutch away kit is beautiful.
Well, it's a thing of beauty, isn't it?
It really is a thing of beauty. It's one of the most beautiful away kits I think I've ever seen. It's a stunning shirt. Unfortunately, the beautiful kit was the only thing beautiful about the Netherlands at this particular moment in their history. You're right. They did. I think it was a precursor to 2010. They decided to go comfy fighting. I think Van Bommel was still comfy fighting.
I think he was still.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Battle of Santiago and that clip from 1962 where David Coleman introduces what the game is doing, and he's absolutely appalled. What you're about to see here is an absolute disgrace. We cannot call this football in any way, shape or form. I mean, David Coleman is absolutely disgusted with the antics that's gone on in Chile. And I think the Battle of Nuremberg is just the same. It's a modern day equivalent. You're right. Cristiano Ronaldo gets kicked off the pitch. He's off in tears. Not the first time we see him cry at World Cup finals, but unfortunately he is back for the next game.
Yeah. The other thing that's quite noticeable watching that game is the amount of long shots. So in that game, there's a huge number of long shots. I mean, they really are shooting from everywhere. And it's got something to do with the ball, probably, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the ball came into a bit of criticism. Adidas, again, it's the World Cup where they bring in new footballs. The Adidas who supply footballs for pretty much every FIFA World Cup and have done since the 1970s, even before that, actually. So they bring out this ball and every ball has its name. This one was called Team Geist. And it was one of those balls that the goalkeepers absolutely hated because it's one of the first balls, unless you're from a generation who your football's from a garage. It's a football that would ball. Absolutely. It was a football that would move quite considerably in the air, which I think encouraged the footballers of that World Cup to take long shots. Germany were doing this. Germany's game was based around, Klinsmann's game was based around long shots and set plays. There's a lot of long shots in this particular World Cup. And I think it is down to the fact that the ball swerves.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. So we get to the quarterfinals. Germany play Argentina, and this is two of the heavyweights in there, and they're playing in Berlin in this one. Germany have to tough this one out, and they go goal behind. They equalise quite near the end, a closer header, and that one goes to penalties, which of course demonstrating that Klinsmann might have reinvented Germany, but he hasn't changed everything. Germany obviously win the penalty shootout with a string of excellent penalties.
Yeah, they do. They convert all four. Argentina missed two of their four, and Germany win 4-2 on penalties. But I think this is the first time that we were introduced to goalkeepers being prepared in advance for penalty kicks. Because Lenz Yeaman, the keeper that's been given the nod ahead of the legend Oliver Kahn, has been prepared for penalties. This just shows the level of how this Germany team was prepared, that Lehmann had notes, the cheat sheet, I think it was called, of where historically Argentine players had placed their penalties, and Lehmann is responsible for saving. I think he saves the two penalties that were missed by Argentina. I think he saves them both. And again, I think this is the first instance we see this. I mean, we see this quite a lot now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen this with Ben Foster for Manchester United in a League Cup final. He had the notes, I think it was the Tottenham or Villa. My memory's so bad. Finals of Manchester United are so far away now. It's like, and when we do get them, we generally lose them anyway to Tottenham Hotspur. But yeah, we see these cheat sheets or details on the bottles of the goalkeepers. We see it quite readily now. It's a common theme in football. Goalkeepers are well prepared. And as a consequence, I think penalty takers have become better. Because in the men's game in particular, and I don't mean as a sexist remark, I think the men's game is at another level in terms of where it is. Penalty kicks are generally of the highest quality from the players taking it. It's very difficult for goalkeepers to get anywhere near a penalty taken in professional men's football because of the accuracy and power in particular behind it. And even though the goalkeepers are prepared with this cheat sheet, it's very difficult to save them. But yeah, I mean, another first in this World Cup, this beautiful World Cup.
It isn't to be a glorious matchup with England because Wayne Rooney, who he was just pure narrative at this point, and England's hopes totally rested with him, and obviously rested quite clearly without him when he sent off, and we get the Cristiano Ronaldo wink. This made Cristiano Ronaldo public enemy number one at this point, and I think his first game back in England after this might have been a pre-season friendly at, of all places, the Kassam Stadium. So there you go. I think we would.
I was there.
There were you. Excellent.
I was there. I was at that game. It was mostly a youth team, but Ferguson picked and played. Were you at that game?
I wasn't. No, I don't know where I was at the time, but yeah, no, I didn't go.
Wow. You won't be surprised to hear that's my one and only visit to the Kassam Stadium.
Don't worry. I feel within a year or two there'll be cause for
next year. Just next year.
So we do get set up with the four semi-finalists, and Germany. And by this point, I think there's real enthusiasm and hope. And I think is you end up with Germany playing Italy in the semi-final. I think they make a really interesting comparison because I think you can argue that in football terms, Italy, as much tournament specialists who scrape through by being really awful during the group and then just playing in the final stages, as much as Germany ever were, the difference is that there's a love for all things Italy. It's fantastic. The shirts.
Guilty as charged, my lord. The case rest.
So you find yourself in the extraordinary position where Italy are playing Germany, and I think almost uniformly in the semi-final, people would be wanting Germany to win this semi-final. I think such was the job Klinsmann had done. They were, I think, head and shoulders, they were the most attractive side in that tournament and the most fun and pretty successful with it. I mean, and this is the incredible thing that Klinsmann had done, is he turned, this was no longer a national project. This was everyone were getting carried away with the way this side were playing.
Yeah, it's definitely the turning point for me. I mean, I'd never really had any kind of close affiliation to Germany prior to this, probably for obvious reasons, being a frustrated England football fan and penalty kicks and so on and so forth, and just dull, mundane football by and large. Yeah, so under normal circumstances, I would be on board with Team Italia, the Azzurri, because who doesn't love all things Italian? By this point, I was back in the UK, but I'd been to Germany, I'd experienced it. I'd fallen in love with this football team. I think I was profoundly in the German corner for this one and desperately wanted them to get to the finals. And I don't think I'm an exception in that. I think that was the general feeling in Germany, obviously, because the German fans were willing their nation now. And obviously all of the bad feeling before the finals had been washed away because this team had taken them on this incredible journey to the World Cup semi-finals on home turf. But I think beyond the boundaries of Germany as well, I think there was a real closeness and affinity for this German team, for how they were playing football, how exciting they were, the youngsters in their ranks, and the charismatic surfer that is Jürgen Klinsmann.
At this point, they seem set up for it, not least because Germany are playing the semi-final at Dortmund, where they've got this unbeaten record as well. And everything looks like this is all coming together. There's a natural end. If you scripting it, that's how you do it. The game goes all the way through. It's scoreless at the end of full time. It's the first game that Germany don't score. And there's a pretty cruel twist in the tail for them. Italy sneak through with 2 goals in the last couple of minutes of extra time. And Germany are kind of denied fulfilling, I think, the destiny that they sort of deserved.
I mean, yeah, but it's quite beautiful the way it happens, because both the Italian goals come in the very final minutes of added extra time. So Fabian Grosso scores, I think, in the 119th minute, which sparks wild celebrations. And then Germany, because of their attacking nature, from the kickoff, just go for it.
Yeah.
And that opens up the possibility for Del Piero, who's come on as a substitute, to nick a second. And the scoreline is quite flattering for Italy, but it's quite poetic, the fact that this German team has been on this journey and they lose in these circumstances where they've been taken right to the very end, where you're almost at the point where you're thinking about penalty kicks again. As a fan, you're thinking, okay, we beat Argentina on penalty kicks. Lehmann's got his cheat sheet. We're going to be okay. We're going to beat Italy on penalty kicks, because Italy always lose on penalty kicks. They never win a penalty shootout, and Germany always win one. So you're kind of thinking this is set up for another German victory on penalties, and they're into the final in Berlin on home turf. But it's not how it works out. And this is a really good Italian team. I mean, let's not forget, again, I don't know if it's deja vu, but, this Italian team is coming out the shadows of scandal nationally. This is where the
unlikely.
The Calciopoli scandal stuff is going on right now. And a lot of these Italian players are going to be playing in Serie B coming the next season. But yeah, I mean, it's almost like the right ending for Germany to go out under these circumstances. It would be wrong. It'd be wrong if they went on and won it. They have to be brilliant losers, and we know that feeling, don't we?
Yeah, and there is an element to which actually, in the same with Keegan, it almost wraps the story up better, and we've seen it with England as well. It almost adds something to the folklore about it. Also, I guess if you were the script writer and you had it written that Germany were going to win that World Cup and fulfill that destiny, if you had to do a rewrite, you'd be pretty hard pressed to come up with anything better. Why don't we have France playing Italy in there? And why don't we just have Zidane do the maddest thing and get sent off for a headbutt in extra to end his career? in this one moment.
But I think Zidane has given us a clue into where his mentality is. He takes a Panenka penalty in a World Cup final. It's a World Cup final. And he has the audacity, the confidence, the brilliance, the stupidity to do a Panenka. He puts Buffon on his backside and it only just clips the underside of the bar and bounces over the line. And this is before we had goal line technology as well, remember? But it's awarded. So I think Zidane's mind, he's already given us an insight. But the headbutt is crazy. And do you know what, Graham, as well? I don't know if she picks up on this. The referee who sends Zidane off for the headbutt on Materazzi, and it's an absolutely the right decision because it's a crazy thing to do for one of the greatest players that's ever played this game on the world stage, where, you know, there's a few billion people tuning in to watch this, right? I don't think, I'm pretty certain, the referee doesn't see it, and the fourth official, who would have been in place at the time, doesn't see it. I think the fourth official sees what Zidane has done to Materazzi on TV replays because he's got the privilege of having a TV screen. And then, because he's connected to the referee, he's then said, you need to send this guy off. And the referee hasn't seen it, and he's trusting, I think, the fourth official who has looked at video evidence. So this is really the seeds of VAR. This is where it comes from.
Yeah.
Zidane is responsible for VAR.
But also, you know, it's a difficult job refereeing, and you can imagine he's sort of, there we go, yeah, blah, 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 and he's just making, and he just hears that, do you know what? I know it's the World Cup final we're in next time with quite a lot of people watch. I think you're going to have to send Zidane off. What for? Why don't you, I think I've just seen it on the TV. You definitely did it. That's a leap of faith, isn't it? That's not easy because that decision's going to get noticed.
I mean, it really is a leap of faith, but I think we've all seen it. We all know that Zidane needs to be sent off. And I think the fourth official, whether he's seen it in real time or whether he's got the privilege of TV replays, is absolutely right to be confident to say to the referee, you need to make a tough decision here. You're not going to like this. I think you need to send the France number 10 off, you know, the most famous footballer in the world at that particular moment.
That's incredible stuff. So Italy win that World Cup on penalties?
After I said just a few moments ago, Italy never
not very good at penalties.
Yes, yeah. But this might have been the first or second time that Italy had won a penalty shootout. Their record up until this point was definitely in the same place as where England's record was when it comes to penalty shootouts. So, but yeah, they do beat France on a penalty shootout. They score five brilliant penalties, and they got the wonderful Pirlo takes the first one. What a player he was. Again, somebody new on the scene. We're seeing Pirlo at the world stage in the early part of his career. Wonderful, wonderful footballer.
So the changing of the guard is happening. A new era, a new dawn is breaking. Now, Klinsmann, to continue and stretch out my Keegan metaphor even further, not unlike Kevin Keegan, is not someone who necessarily settles. He's a little bit nomadic, and he certainly knows his own mind. And after that success, obviously, you know, I think they want Klinsmann to continue, which probably wasn't the original the thought ahead of the World Cup. But Klinsmann opts against it. He thinks it's time to go back to California and enjoy a calmer life. As you say, does have a spell at Bayern Munich, has a spell at in charge of the US national side as well.
Yes.
But that's, you know, this is this incredible moment, and he bows out, but the legacy he leaves is pretty impressive, isn't it?
As legacies go, I mean, he's laid the groundwork, and he's left his number 2 in charge because Jogi Löw goes on to become the national team manager. And I think Germany's longest serving manager, maybe Helmut Schol was longer. I don't know. I should check that. But I mean, it's an incredible foundation that he's laid, because what he's done, he's laid out a blueprint that Germany as a international football team can play exciting, attacking football. There is a wonderful crop of youngsters coming through, not just the Podolski and Schweinsteiger and Lahm who take part in this edition. You've also got Hummels and Ozil and Goetze and Sven Bender. They're all coming through the ranks in German football. An exciting crop, and turn that into something incredibly special. And goes on 8 years later to win the World Cup in Brazil, beating Brazil in the semi-final in probably one of the best games I've ever seen, actually. 7-1 in the American Half. Incredible.
So from this moment on, the philosophy which is kind of instilled by Klinsmann sort of carries on. So, 2010 South Africa, that's when Lowe kind of renews the squad again. I think Germany have the second youngest squad in that tournament. As you say, the likes of Ozil and so forth coming through. And then by the time you're getting to 2014, you get this culmination of the style in which they're playing. And they absolutely blip Brazil. I mean, it's an unbelievable. That first half is probably the most extraordinary half of football, certainly in a World Cup I've ever watched. And so the reinvention is complete.
It is, and it's done with a super special players. I remember watching that Germany team in 2014, and I'd been on the journey. I think part of their legacy had kind of touched me in the 2006 World Cup and being in Germany as well. So I remember being absolutely thrilled for Germany. I think I run around the house when Mario Götze scored that winning goal against Argentina in the final. I was that excited and pleased that you want to see brilliant teams do well. I mean, this is now a team with Thomas Muller and Tony Kroos in it. I mean, these are special players. So, yeah, I think Klinsmann needs a little bit of credit in terms of, I mean, Jogi Löw did all the hard work with his playing staff and his players, but Klinsmann was brave enough to say, and he had the courage to say, hold on, we can do things different. We don't have to be the Germany of old. We can be the Germany of new.
Yeah, absolutely. So we should get to ranking this side, our first ranking of the new season. As a reminder, we have 5 categories of greatness, from all-time greats to the top down to true greats through touch of greatness, our middle category, age of greatness, and good greats, and on the occasionally used, mostly for when you can't think of anything other. But maybe there is a case in this one for not necessarily great, but without them, they wouldn't be where we are here today, because there's no question, without this Klinsmann year, Germany wouldn't be where they went on to be. Where are you going on this one, Jamie?
Well, I mean, this is the third Germany team we've covered. We did West Germany in 1954, and we ranked them in true greats. And I think there was some debate about not even ranking them in that category. I think we wanted to, some of us wanted to rank them less than that. We then did the Euro 1996 winners, Germany, who won on the golden goal, and we ranked them in the edge of greatness.
We were quite bitter and begrudging at that point.
I think we were, and we probably saw that the rock bottom was coming. They won the Euros, but we could see rock bottom was only 6 years away when they lose to Brazil in the World Cup final and hit rock bottom. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I think you make a good point about not great. I can't be comfortable with that though, because this is the world stage. This is the FIFA World Cup for the semi-finals. And, if we look at some of the teams we've ranked previously that have got to those stages or not, Wales, the quarterfinals in their only World Cup, we still found a ranking for them beyond not great. I think anyone who commutes from California to Germany for their job deserves a couple of points of greatness. I mean, that's all-time greats right there. I mean, that's dedication, even though he is the German national football team manager. So it's not stress as it is, but it's still a nice position to hold. I think I am going to go, I'm torn between edge because of what follows, or touch because of the courage of Klinsmann to rip up the German national football team handbook and rewrite it from scratch.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go touch, and I'm going to let you convince me I'm wrong.
I always feel it's a bit boring putting people in touch because it's the middle category. I do it too often. But I just don't think, and obviously it seems a bit nonsensical that we'd rank a team that loses in the semi-final above a team that wins the tournament. But the style in which they do it is, this story is far more than just an achievement at a World Cup. I think it tells so much more for reinventing the identity of a side and a country and getting something everyone could get behind, both within Germany and outside of it as well. Klinsmann had shown at Spurs that he could kind of reinvent narratives. He could reinvent stuff. He didn't win anything at Spurs either, but that's a surprise to no one. But he showed it, under the most intense sort of pressure. And I mean, you're right about what comes through, but I think, and we will at some stage relatively soon, I think, suspect do that 2014 side, because it is such a good one, and they will be knocking on the door between true and all time, I suspect. So I think it's quite legitimate to put this team in touch of greatness, and for Klinsmann alone. And certainly through my previous rankings, I certainly owe them a positive view. So I'm going to say Germany, Klinsmann, touch of greatness.
Do you think we should talk about Michael Ballack?
We definitely should. So this is sort of lost on me. I mean, and it's maybe lost on me because of my preconceptions that Germany are just massively successful. Michael Ballack was German. He would just be winning stuff all the time. And he sort of doesn't, does he?
I think there's an argument. I mean, unluckiest footballer when you played at the highest level, and your Michael Ballack is probably a tag that doesn't really sit well, considering all of the fame, adulation, and success he's had. But I mean, he's been a runner-up more times, I think, than any other footballer in major competitions. In 2002, just to kind of give you the picture, he was playing for Bayer Leverkusen. Now, Bayer Leverkusen finished second in the Bundesliga. He's a runner-up behind Dortmund. They lost the equivalent of the German FA Cup, the Pokal, to Schalke. So he's a runner-up. This is all in 2002. They're the equivalent of the League Cup. Bayer Leverkusen were the runners-up to Schalke again. And then in the Champions League in 2002, Bayer Leverkusen get to the final and they lose to an incredible Zinedine Zidane volley, Real Madrid. So he's a runner-up 4 times already in 2002.
It's just in 2002.
This is just, and it still isn't over. Then he goes to Japan and Korea with Germany in the German national team. He is by far and away the most outstanding player in the German national team. Bearing in mind that Klose scores, I think, 5 goals in that tournament. Ballack is the most outstanding player. And then he picks up a second booking in the semi-final against South Korea and then is banned from playing in the final, to which Germany lose 2-0. So in 5 major contests in the year of 2002, Michael Ballack reaches the final in all of them and is the runner-up in all of them. And it does continue. In the Champions League final in 2008, when Chelsea he was playing for Chelsea and they lost to Manchester United, he was a runner-up. Chelsea got to the League Cup final that year as well, where incredibly they lost to Spurs. I mean, who loses a final to Spurs? Nobody loses a final to Spurs. He's a runner-up. And then in 2010, Germany get to the semi-finals of the World Cup, and he's in that squad as well. So I think there's a case that Michael Ballack is the most unluckiest footballer in the history of the game. But I wouldn't want to stand by that statement, because I'm sure there are lots of cases for lots of players out there. Patrick Evra has lost 4 Champions League finals with 3 different clubs. Yeah. Michael Ballack, unlucky.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great shout, and I think you can make the case that he is amongst the unlucky. So we'll have a little think as the season goes on about any further unlucky candidates. We haven't quite finalised our running order, but we've certainly got some interesting sides that we've got coming up. So we will be doing, amongst other things, we're going to be taking a look at Steve Coppell's Right and Bright Crystal Palace, which is a great little story. Derby fans, you can get ready for a bit of Derby heaven and hell, because we're going to be taking you to your happy place of Brian Clough's glorious first title win with Derby County. And they're going to be taking you to a slightly less happy place, which might be a slightly disastrous season in the Premiership some years later. So looking forward to those ones?
Very much looking forward to those ones. Some great teams to explore, especially the Crystal Palace team. That's right and bright. I mean, what a fantastic combination. We get to talk about strike partnerships. We're also going to be, I mean, we did an Arsenal team in our seasonal special. Phil covered it. The 1939 team, which was kind of loosely connected to the Arsenal Stadium mystery. And we were more fascinated with the film than we were the team. And for all the right reasons, it happened that the team just, came around just before the Second World War started. So we're going to do Arsenal some justice. And we're not going to go back to the 1930s. We're going to do the Wenger early years.
So we'll have all those coming up in the first half of this upcoming season. And as ever, we'd love to hear from you if there's any sides that you suggest us picking up. But that's all for the weeks to come. Until then, Jamie, thank you as ever.
Yeah, great to be back. Absolutely wonderful to be back, and looking forward to, I think, what is going to be a very exciting season for our little podcast venture.
Excellent. So until next week, that's bye-bye from us.